מה נשתנה הלילה הזה מכל הלילות, מכל הלילות, שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים חמץ ומצה. הלילה זה כולו מצה. הלילה זה כולו מצה.
Hello, CBENT. I'm so excited for us to begin our Zoom Passover Seder. As you can see, I'm in the festive mood. I've got my Zoom Passover background, and I hope that you are feeling festive and excited for the meal to come. And welcome to our Passover Seder for 2021. So before we begin, the Seder has one very important principle, and that is that every single Jew should act and tell the story at the Seder as though they themselves went out of Egypt, as if you and I both were slaves and now are free. How do we do that? Well, we treat this holiday and we treat this night as a form of storytelling and time travel, where we really put ourselves into that role and we think about what it would have been like for us to not be born a free people. And we pray for the future in which other people who are currently not free will experience that freedom as well. Welcome and join us now for a wonderful night of Passover celebration, of song and food. Happy Passover.
Ade shurchat karpas yachat magid rachatza motzi matzah marur koreh shulchan orech Safun Barech Hallel Nirtzah.
Recite the Kiddush, wash the hands, eat a green vegetable, break the middle matzah, and hide a half of it for the Afikomen. Recite the Passover story, wash the hands before the meal. Say the hamotzi and the special blessing for the matzah. Eat the bitter herb. Eat the bitter herb and matzah together. Serve the festive meal. Eat the afikomen. Say the grace after meal. Recite the Hallel and conclude the Seder.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol am v'ramamanu mikol lashon v'kiddushanu b'mitzvotav. V'hatiten lanu Adonai Eloheinu b'ahava moadim l'simcha chagim uzmanim lesason et yom chag hamatzot hazeh zman cherutenu mikra kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta v'yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim u'moadei kodshecha v'simcha uv'sason hinchatanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. L'chaim.
We are now at the step of orchatz, and at the beginning of the Seder, when we do orchatz, or hand washing, there is no blessing this time. It is our first act of cleansing for the night. And although we don't make the blessing, orchatz is a reminder for us that we are moving spiritually and physically out of Mitzrayim, out of the land of Egypt, out of bondage, and are on our way now to becoming a free people.
Blessing for the green vegetable. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam borei pri hadamah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who creates the fruit of the earth.
Yachatz. It is now time to take the middle matzah from the 3 matzot on our Seder table and to break it in half. One half is returned to the table, but the other half is put aside to be saved until the very end of the meal, when it will be eaten as a dessert. That half is called the afikomen. In many homes, it is traditional to hide the afikomen, as the Seder cannot be concluded until the afikomen is shared and eaten by all present. A favorite custom is for a child to hide the afikomen and then to ransom it for a prize, so that the meal can be finished and so that the Seder may continue.
Did you ever notice that we begin our Passover story, the Magid part of our Seder, in the ancient language of Aramaic? Why do we use Aramaic instead of Hebrew? Because Aramaic was the language of the people, the common language, and the rabbis, including Rashi, stressed the importance of the story of Passover being told in a language that everyone could understand. For our congregation, that language, of course, is English. For our ancestors, it was Aramaic. Sometimes we may feel it is inauthentic to pray in English or to read from the Haggadah in English, but the rabbis actually say the exact opposite. And therefore, it is important that we make the Seder accessible to all in a language that all people can understand, so that everyone can live out the mitzvah of seeing themselves as though they were there, once as slaves in Egypt who were liberated by God.
All who are hungry, come and eat. Let all who are needy come and celebrate Passover.
At present we are here. Next year may we be in Israel. At present we are slaves. Next year may we all be free.
The 4 questions, which is arguably one of the most popular, most famous parts of our Seder, is really a lesson for all of us in education, specifically the importance of allowing children and adults the opportunity to ask questions in their own language and according to their own ability. Although some at the table may want to get through the Seder as quickly as possible in order to get to the meal or to the end of the Seder altogether, the Seder is meant to be a time for questions and conversation. How else can we learn about our heritage? This is the time for interrupting with questions, and remember, there are no stupid questions, especially during the Seder.
Alright, Manistana Halayla Hazem Miko Halaylo Ha Miko Halaylo Manishtana Halayla Hazem Miko Halaylot Miko Shevahol Hallelu Anu Ofin Hame Tumata Hame Tumata Halayla Halayla Hazakulo Matza Halayla Halayla Hazakulo Matza
Shebehol Halelot Anu Ochin Hametz Umatzah Hametz Umatzah Halayla Hazeh Kulo Matzah Halayla Hazeh Kulo Matzah
Shevahol Hallelu Anu Ohim Sha'a Yirako Halayla Hazeh Mavor Halayla Hazeh Mavor
Shebehol Halelot Anu Ochim She'ar Yerakot Halayla Hazeh Maror Halayla Hazeh Maror
Hallelujah in Anu Mapelin Afilu Pa'am Echat Halayla Hazeh Shete Fe'amim Halayla Hazeh Shete Fe'amim
Shebehol Halelot Ein Anu Matbilin Afilu Pa'am Echat Halayla Hazeh Shete Fe'amim Halayla Hazeh Shete Fe'amim
Go Shevachol Hallelu Anu Elohim Ben Yoshvin Uvein Mesubin Halayla Hazeh Kulanu Mesubin Halayla Hazeh Kulanu Mesubin
Shebehol Halelot Anu Ochlim Ben Yoshvin Uvein Mesubin Halayla Hazeh Kulanu Mesubin Halayla Hazeh Kulanu Mesubin.
We were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, but the Lord our God took us out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Had not God taken our ancestors out of Egypt, then we, our children, and our grandchildren would still be enslaved to Pharaoh in Egypt. Even if we all were wise and perceptive, experienced and versed in Torah, it would still be our duty to tell about the Exodus from Egypt. The more one talks about the Exodus, the more praise they deserve.
Ata b'nei chorim Avadim hayinu Ata b'nei chorim Avadim hayinu Ata b'nei chorim
The Torah speaks of the 4 children. 4 children were at Seder. 1 wise, 1 wicked, 1 simple, and 1 who did not know how to ask a question. But which child was which? Was the wise child smart or a smart aleck? Was a wicked child bad or challenging? Was a simple child really simple? And was the fourth child unable to ask a question or unwilling to do so? Which one was which?
4 children were at the Seder, and we all take for granted that one was wise, one was wicked, one was simple, and one did not know how to ask. But imagine that a parent declared, I have 4 children. This one is the brains. This one is a troublemaker. This one is Mashugana, and this one is silent. Would we let such a statement pass? Would we let a teacher get away with saying, I have 4 students, the brilliant one, the stupid, the loudmouth, and the one who never says a word? What is the Haggadah getting at?
Perhaps the Haggadah deliberately provides caricatures of 4 types of children to teach us something about the care we must take when we answer questions. We have an obligation to teach the next generation about this powerful story. We need to respect the way each child learns and interacts with the world. Each person at our Seder is coming from a different place. This child is older and more experienced. That child has never been to Seder before. This child has been diagnosed with learning differences and has difficulty sitting for long periods of time. That child never learned to read Hebrew and doesn't enjoy reading aloud. Too often, our categorizations of children become self-fulfilling prophecies because the power of our responses influences future behaviors.
So, by telling us the story of the 4 children, each with a distinct question and each with a distinct answer, the Haggadah is telling us to accept each person where they are and to begin from there. It reminds us that in specific situations, we might feel more wise, wicked, simple, or not know how to ask. A key message of the 4 children is that we are all welcome at Seder, reminding us to make the ancient story of Passover relevant and accessible to all by teaching it in ways that lead to understanding, engagement, and action for every child and for every adult.
שעמדה לאבותינו, והיא שעמדה לאבותינו ולנו, שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו לכלותנו, עמד עלינו לכלותנו, והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו מידם. Na 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 na.
Israel went down to Egypt and sojourned there, few in number. There they became a nation, great and mighty and numerous. The Egyptians suspected us of evil and afflicted us. They imposed hard labor upon us. We cried to the Lord, the God of our ancestors. The Lord heard our cry and saw our affliction, our toil and our oppression. The Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, with our great awe, miraculous signs and wonders. The Lord brought us out of Egypt not by an angel, not by a seraph, not by a messenger, but by the Holy One. Blessed be God. As it is written, I will pass through the land of Egypt on that night. I will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from man unto beast. On all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. I will pass through the land of Egypt on that night, myself, not an angel. I will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, myself and not a seraph. On all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments, myself, not a messenger. I am the Lord, I and none other. These are the 10 plagues for which the Holy One, blessed be God, brought upon the Egyptians in Egypt.
The 10 plagues is a moment when we recognize God's power in the world, and also the consequences of the Exodus story and how it affected the Egyptians. Rabbi David Teutsch teaches, if we only pour 10 drops of wine from our cups and do nothing more, we do not understand the significance of this part of our Seder. Our joy cannot be complete when there is cruelty and suffering in the world. And so we can't only think of ourselves, our family, our own people when we are facing a world filled with suffering. And we cannot wait for others to tackle injustices of our time. So as we dip our pinky finger into our glass of wine or our glass of juice, and we put each plague onto our plate, let us think about, what are we going to do this year to tackle injustice for everyone?
Pharaoh, oh Pharaoh, say it isn't so. You actually refuse to let my people go? Pharaoh, oh Pharaoh, say it isn't so. You actually refuse to let my people go. Put your arms up. Oh, wee-oh, oh, wee-oh, oh, wee-oh, oh, wee-oh. Pharaoh, you'll be punished for the choice that you have made. The Egyptians now will suffer from 10 whole plagues. Everybody now. Oh, wee-oh, oh, wee-oh, oh, wee-oh, oh, wee-oh. There'll be blood in the water and frogs jumping everywhere, and your head will be itchy from lice in your hair. Soon the land will be covered with lots of wild beasts, and then animals will suffer from cattle disease. You'll have boils on your body, and the sky will fill with hail. Then there'll be locusts flying through the air. Then there'll be darkness. The sun will not arise, and the last plague of all will bring tears to your eyes. Oh, how you will mourn the death of your firstborn. Put your arms up, here we go. Oh, wee-oh, oh, wee-oh, oh, wee-oh, oh, wee-oh. Pharaoh, oh Pharaoh, say it isn't so. You actually refuse to let my people go? Pharaoh, oh Pharaoh, say it isn't so. You actually refuse to let my people go.
Dam, blood. Tzifardea, frogs. Kinim, vermin. Arov, wild animals. Dever, cattle disease. Shechin, boils. Barad, hail. Arbe, locusts. Choshech, darkness. Makat bechorot, death of the firstborn.
Ilu, Ilu, Hotzianu, Hotzianu, mi Mitzrayim, Hotzianu, mi Mitzrayim, Dayenu. Everybody now. Dayenu, 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 Dayenu. Ilu, Ilu, Natan Lanu, Natan Lanu et HaShabbat, Natan Lanu et HaShabbat, Dayenu, 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 Dayenu. Ilu, Ilu, Natan Lanu, Natan Lanu, et HaTorah, Natan Lanu, et HaTorah, Dayenu. Dayenu, 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 Dayenu.
Rabbi Gamliel used to say, anyone who has not discussed these three things on Passover has not fulfilled their duty. They are Pesach, the Passover offering, matzah, the unleavened bread, and maror, the bitter herbs. So for those of us who are sitting at a table with a Seder plate, we point now at the Seder plate part that has our paschal lamb, the bone. And we say, why did our ancestors eat the Passover offering during the period of the temple? It is because the Holy One, blessed be God, passed over the houses of our ancestors in Egypt, as it is written, you shall say, it is the Passover offering for the Lord, who passed over the houses of the children in Egypt. When God smote the Egyptians and spared our houses, the people knelt and bowed down. And now we point at the matzah and we say, why do we eat this matzah? It is because the Holy One redeemed us before their dough had time to rise. As it is written, they baked the dough which they had brought out of Egypt into unleavened cakes, for they were driven out of Egypt and could not delay, nor had they prepared any provision for their journey. And finally, the third item, maror, we point to the bitter herb and say, why do we eat this bitter herb? It is because the Egyptians embittered the lives of our ancestors in Egypt. As it is written, they made life bitter for them with hard labor, with clay and bricks, and with all kinds of labor in the field. Whatever work tasks they performed were backbreaking. In every generation, it is everyone's duty to regard themselves as though they personally had come out of Egypt. As it is written, you shall tell your child on that day, this is on account of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. It was not only our ancestors whom the Holy One redeemed from slavery, we too were redeemed with them. As it is written, God took us out from there so that God might take us to the land which God had sworn to our ancestors. We cover the matzah again and we raise our cup of wine until we have the second cup of the blessing for the second cup. Therefore, it is our duty to thank and praise, pay tribute and glorify, exalt and honor, bless and acclaim the one who performed all of these miracles for our ancestors and for us. God took us out of slavery into freedom, out of grief into joy, out of mourning into festival, out of darkness into a great light, out of slavery into redemption. We will recite a new song before God. Hallelujah.
Israel mi Mitzrayim v'sei Yaakov lo es
Harta Yehuda lekodsho Israel mam shalotav
Hayam Ra'avayo Vayanos Hayardain Yiso Le'achor
Yeharim Rakat Elim Gevaon Kiveneson.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who creates the fruit of the vine.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim. Praised are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who has commanded us and sanctified, making it holy for washing our hands. Aziz and Pesach, everyone.
This is the blessing over the matzah. We're actually doing two blessings, and you eat the matzah after the second blessing. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al achilat matzah. The blessing for maror. Maror is the bitter herbs. I'm taking a bit of bitter herbs and putting on a piece of matzah. And now I'm saying the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al achilat maror. Now we are going to eat the sandwich. We need to take some of our bitter herbs, some of our charoset, and make a sandwich. I take my bitter herbs, put it on my matzah, take some of my charoset, also put it with my bitter herbs together. For my sandwich, and we say in English, in memory of the temple, according to Hillel, this is what Hillel would do long ago when the temple stood. He would make a sandwich of the matzah, of the Passover lamb, which is the matzah, and the bitter herbs, and eat them together. This was to keep what the Torah says. They shall eat the Passover lamb together with matzah and bitter herbs. Now you may eat your sandwich.
Zafun, remember the afikomen, that half piece of matzah that you took at Yachatz and put aside for safekeeping? Well, now is the time to find it. Ransom it if you must, and then share it with all at your Seder table. Then savor that last piece of tasty matzah. The meal is concluded, and the Seder can continue with the Birkat Hamazon.
After the wonderful dinner we have all eaten, it is time for Birkat Hamazon, the grace after meals. Shir Amalo B'shuv Adonai et Shivat Zion Ayinu Kechomim Hashem Alesecha Pinu Ushonenu Rina Az Yomru Vagoyim Igdil Adonai La'asoti Melech Igdil Adonai La'asoti Manu Hayinu Semechim Shuva Adonai Et Shiviteinu Kafikim Ba'negev Hazorim Bedima Berina Yixolru Oloch Yelechu Vacho No Se Meshech Hazara Bo Yavo Verina No Se Alumota Ave Rai Nivarech, praise be the one in the name of the Lord our God. from this time forth and forevermore. Bershut Chaverai, Nivarech Eloheinu Shechanu Mishelo, Baruch Eloheinu Shechanu Mishelo, Tuvo Chayinu. Praise be God with the bounty that he has given us, and let us say Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hazan et haolam kulo b'tuvo, b'chem b'chesed u'vrachamim, hu noten lechem le'obasor, ki le'olam vasto, u'tuvo agadol, Talmid lo chasan lanu v'al yisan lanu ma'azon le'olam va'ed bavor shemo agadol ki wazanu farnes la'kol u'metiv la'kol u'mechim ma'azon le'chol briyotav asher bara baruch atah Adonai hazan et hakol. Meet da Yeshuot Malko, V'yosei Chesed Lim Shimcho, V'ledavidu Lizaro Ad Olam, Oseh Shalom V'mramav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisroel V'yimenru, Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who creates the fruit of the vine.
Elijah the prophet, of course, is first from the book of prophets, but he also became over time a popular character in rabbinic stories and Yiddish folk tales. And often in those stories, Elijah is disguised as a beggar, someone considered low in society. Often Elijah is treated poorly by others, including the sage rabbis who should know better than to treat a poor person or a stranger badly. When Elijah finally reveals himself as the great prophet, the characters of the story, and ourselves, the readers, are confronted once again with the value of the most pressing lesson from our Torah: you shall not oppress the stranger. All your works praise you, Lord our God, your pious followers who perform your will, and all your people, the house of Israel, praise, thank, bless, glorify, extol, exalt, revere, sanctify, and coronate your name, our King. To you it is fitting to give thanks, and unto your name it is proper to sing praises, for you are God eternal. And we lean to the left and recite over the fourth cup, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who creates the fruit of the vine.
Ready? Hodu l'Adonai ki tov ki le'olam hasto yomarna Yisrael ki le'olam hasto Yomruna Veit Aharon ki le'olam hasto Yomruna Yirei Adonai ki le'olam hasto.
We continue with Nirtzah. The Seder now concludes, according to Halacha, complete in all laws and ordinances. Just as we were privileged to arrange it tonight, so may we be granted to perform it again. O pure one who dwells in the heights above, establish us as a countless people once again. Speedily guide Israel as a redeemed people to the land of Zion with song. The Shana Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem.
Adirhu, Adirhu, Yivnei Beito B'Karo, B'mheira, B'mheira, B'yameinu B'Karo, Elbnei, Elbnei, B'nei Beito B'Karo, Machorhu, Gadolhu, Dagolhu, Hadorhu, Yivnei Beito B'Karo, B'mheira, B'mheira, B'yameinu B'Karo, Elbnei, Elbnei, B'nei Beito B'Karo. Happy Pesach!
And since it is the second night of Passover, we begin the counting of the Omer. The counting of the Omer dates back to when the Israelites would set aside a sheaf of barley from their harvest and would then eventually go down to the temple in Jerusalem on Shavuot to offer in thanksgiving their harvest. The connection between Passover, which is a chag, a pilgrimage holiday in which the Israelites would come to the temple and offer a sacrifice of the Paschal lamb, and Shavuot, which is also an agricultural holiday, is this counting of the Omer for 49 days, for 7 weeks. And we begin tonight. If you look at your Haggadah on page 18, you can read the blessing with me for the first night. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sefirat ha'omer. Hayom yom echad la'omer. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who has sanctified us by the commandments and commanded us to count the Omer. Today is day 1 of the Omer.
שישה סדרי משנה, חמישה חומשי תורה, ארבע אמהות, שלושה אבות, שני לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ. שבעה אני יודע, שבעה אני יודע, שבעה ימי שבתא, שישה סדרי משנה, חמישה חומשי תורה, ארבע אמהות, שלושה אבות, שני לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ. שמונה אני יודע, שמונה אני יודע, שמונה ימי מילה, שבעה ימי שבתא, שישה סדרי משנה, חמישה חומשי תורה, ארבע אמהות, שלושה אבות, שני לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ. תשעה אני יודע, תשעה אני יודע, תשעה ימי לידה, שמונה ימי מילה, שבעה ימי שבתא, שישה סדרי משנה, חמישה חומשי תורה, ארבע אמהות, שלושה אבות, שני לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ. עשרה אני יודע, עשרה אני יודע, עשרה דבריה, תשעה יפי לידה, שמונה ימי מילה, שבעה ימי שבתא, שישה סדרי משנה, חמישה חומשי תורה, ארבע אמהות, שלושה אבות, שני לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ. 11 אני יודע, 11 אני יודע, 11 כוכביה, 10 דבריה, 9 ימי לידה, 8 ימי מילה, 7 ימי שבתא, 6 סדרי משנה, 5 חומשי תורה, 4 אמהות, 3 אבות, 2 לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ. 12 אני יודע, 12 אני יודע, 12 שבתיה, 11 כוכביה, 10 דבריה, 9 ימי לידה, 8 ימי מילה, 7 ימי שבתא, 6 סדרי משנה, 5 חומשי תורה, 4 אמהות, 3 אבות, 2 לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ. 13 אני יודע, 13 אני יודע, 13 מדיה, 12 שבתיה, 11 כוכביה, 10 דבריה, 9 יפי לידה, 8 ימי מילה, 7 ימי שבתא, 6 סדרי משנה, 5 חומשי תורה, 4 אמהות, 3 אבות, 2 לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ.
Well, there came a goat, there came a kid, that father but for two zuzim had gadiyad, had gadiyad. Then came a cat that ate the kid, that father but for two zuzim had gadiyad, gadiyad. There came a dog that bit the cat that ate the kid that father bought for two zuzim. Hadgadia, hadgadia. Then came a stick that beat the dog that bit the cat that ate the kid that father bought for two. We were using hadgadia, hadgadia. Then came the fire that burnt the stick that bit the dog that bit the cat that ate the kid that father bought for two zuzim. Hadgadia, hadgadia. Then came the water that quenched the fire that burnt the stick that beat the dog that bit the cat that ate the kid that father bought for two. We were using hadgadia, hadgadia. Then came the ox that drank the water that quenched the fire that burnt the stick that beat the dog that bit the cat that ate the kid that father bought for two zuzim. Hadgadia, hadgadia. Then came the butcher that slaughtered the ox that drank the water that quenched the fire that burnt the stick that beat the dog that bit the cat that ate the kid that father bought for two. We were using hadgadia, hadgadia. Then came the angel of death, that slayed the butcher, that slaughtered the ox that drank the water that quenched the fire that burnt the stick that beat the dog that bit the cat that ate the kid that father bought for two zuzim. Hadgadia, hadgadia. Then came the Lord our God, King of the universe, that smote the angel of death, that slayed the butcher, that slaughtered the ox, that drank the water that quenched the fire, that burnt the stick, that beat the dog, that bit the cat, that ate the kid, that father but for two. We use him. God, God, yeah.
We conclude our Seder tonight with the hope and prayer that next year, next Passover, we will be able to have the second night together as one community in person, hopefully in a time when there is much less suffering and that we can all be safe together once again. Chag Sameach, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Good night.
Kimt a ketzel, sis nit foil, chap du sigalen moil, chad gat yo. Ich gedenk fin vigales, nicken für den Zigale, chad gat yo. Kelai no way, kisur melacha. Kelai no way, kisur melacha. חבר'ה, בוא נרקד יחד ונשירה ונשמחה אנו בני ציון עם ישראל חי כלאי נווה קיסר מלאכה כלאי נווה קיסר מלאכה Mardum maiderlirum ay stop mardum maiderlirum ay stop bom bim
Ilu ilu hotzianu hotzianu mi Mitzrayim hotzianu mi Mitzrayim dayenu 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 Ilu ilu koralanu koralanu etayam koralanu etayam dayenu 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 Ilu ilu echilanu echilanu etaman echilanu etaman dayenu 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 hey 2 3 4 Ilu natan lanu et hashabat natan lanu dayenu 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 Ilu ilu kevanu lizay Harsina lizay Harsina dayenu 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 Ilu ilu natan lanu et Torah natan lanu et Torah dayenu 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 Ilu ilu ichnisanu li eretz Yisrael 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 dayenu 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 dayenu